people, how you doing? I hope you're having a goddamn great day. Welcome back to the channel for another Throwback Thursday. Today, we will be talking about ways that you can replicate and recreate Pep Guardiola's Centurion team. Of course, from the 2018 title win. I think that was his first Premier League title that they won, beating Man United by a whole 19 points and of course achieving 100 points. The first ever team in the Premier League to do so. So, we'll have a look at the team at hand, of course. Quite a few players have obviously moved on since then. Of course, Sterling, David Silva, Company, of course. But again, a fantastic side. And along with that, I've gone ahead and created their more offensive type structure, which did surprise me when doing the full research. I was so surprised that this was the shape that they more or less look to try and take up. Obviously, it's very different to the current 3-2-4-1 system that they use in real life at this moment in time. Of course, there's different personnel, there's different roles, there's different movements that are required. But yes, we will be talking about this structure and shape as well. So if you guys don't mind hitting the like button, subscribing if you are new, and of course, commenting down below. Rate the system, rate the tactics, you guys can let me know. And yes, let's hop on straight into the goddamn video. So starting off with the balanced approach, the 4-3-3 holding, that's what I have selected for them. And the only real changes I have made is I've spread the two centre-backs, and this helps with the ball-playing abilities when under pressure, playing out from the back, of course. And I've also dropped the DM ever so slightly. But otherwise, it's just going to be the substandard 4-3-3. So it will be one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, one DM, two central midfielders, two wingers, and then, of course, one striker. So, progressing on to the tactics. Now, I will say this, the tactics do alter and change a little bit when obviously changing the game plan to the more offensive style of play, but one thing that will remain the same is the tactical vision being set to wing play. Often, whether it was Sane or Sterling down at the left flank, combining with the likes of a Fabian Delph, a Mendy, or even a Kyle Walker on the right-hand side, they would look to work the ball into those wider areas, trying to stretch the opposition's back line as much as possible. Obviously, this allowed for quite a bit of space for the likes of a David Silva, maybe even a Bernardo Silva, and of course a Kevin De Bruyne to try and operate in those little half spaces, and obviously try and pull the strings for cutbacks and crosses and all that good stuff. So I think wing play best suits the Centurion Man City side, and to be fair, even the current side. Anyways, moving on to the defense and the defensive style, I've set it to pressing after possession loss. Of course, Man City would, have a very high line, press nice and high up the field, put the opposition under pressure, win the ball back, and of course, to try and turn it into a goal-scoring opportunity. But at the same time, what I would suggest you do is, because you can be exploited and really widespread at times, if you are beaten, if they do play through your press, look to try and foul them. It's a very realistic tactic and maneuver that City, to date, regardless, they'll try and do as well, trying to foul the opposition, slowing down the play, allowing them to more or less regain their shape and their structure. So in terms of that, it is a very widespread team width, and this helps with the kind of the press and the man v man type system that you are looking to try and run on the defensive end, and I've set that to 70. I think it works out very well. In terms of the depth, of course, this does change and go up quite a bit with the more offensive structure, but the more balanced approach should be set to 80, allowing you to, yes, have that high line, allow the fullbacks to be very involved in the build-up play higher up the field, allowing you to try and help pin and create this wave after wave of attacking outlets, and more so, I think 80 suits that. As for the offense and the build-up play, of course, it's going to be set to slow build-up, and the chance creation will be set to possession, of course, looking to work the ball through the thirds of the field, progressing it nice and high, and then when you do, get into those more opportune, more offensive type areas, you want to have a lot of a good supporting cast around the player on the ball, whether that's a Sterling dropping a bit deeper, helping, supply that width, or maybe even a Kevin De Bruyne and a Bernardo Silva. You want the consistent movements as well as consistent passing options when you are on the ball. And again, slow build-up and possession does this very effectively. As for the width, it is set to 90. Like I said earlier, they do try and, stretch the opposition as much as possible, opening up quite a lot of space in between the lines as well as in between the opposition's back line, allowing for a De Bruyne, a Bernardo Silva, a David Silva, and so on to try and operate in those little, pockets of space. Onto the players in the box now. I have set it to 8, allowing for at least 4 players to be in and around the box. Now, more so, it was Aguero and one of the wingers, or maybe even both of the wingers, but at the same time, the addition of a midfielder, whether it was a David Silva or a Kevin De Bruyne, more so it would be Kevin De Bruyne making that byline run, and then obviously looking to try and cut it back for one of the forwards in and around the box to try and latch onto. So you do want to try and replicate that very nicely, very effectively, and I do think that 8 suits that. In terms of the corners and the free kicks, as per always, it is set to 4. Okay, so taking a look at the instructions now, I will say this, they don't overly change too much between the more offensive structure and the balanced one. The likes of Edison will still be set to come for crosses and be a sweeper keeper, of course, using his ball playing abilities to your team's advantage. And from the first season all the way through until this season right here, right now, he has been nothing short of superb. As a more modernized goalkeeper, the ability to play out from the back under pressure, having the ability to, ping those passes long, get them in behind for the on runners, whether it was Sane or Sterling or who else was one of their wingers at that time? All I know is Sane and Sterling were like the main guys in that season. But yeah, obviously they had loads of pace to burn. And it was around this time where obviously Edison was not really well known. And the season prior to that, teams would press Man City nice and high up the field, and often City would crumble under the pressure. But with the addition of Edison, having that good ball playing ability, the ability to ping in those accurate passes long as well, it kind of allowed for the opposition to try and more or less set off or sit back against Man City and maybe not press them as much. And that obviously allowed and played into the hands of what Pep was looking to try and do, playing out from the back very effectively, getting on the ball and building the offense quite nicely. So Edison was a major building block for the success of this current City side, as well as that Centurion City side. Anyways, moving on to your 2 centre-backs. Now, I've made no major changes to them. Of course, it was Stones, and it could have been Laporte, or at the time, Otamendi as well. But you don't really need to do too much with it. So again, basic defensive, or basic instructions for the defensive awareness of the two. As for your 2 fullbacks, slightly differing roles, both would be told to join the attack. At this time, it was either Mendy, who would make the more Kyle Walker type role on the left-hand side, but of course he did get injured, and that forced Pep to deploy the likes of Fabian Delph into the left-back departments. And of course, Fabian Delph was a central midfielder, very much like Zinchenko, a central midfielder playing in as a left-back. And that allowed, Pep to try and, morph and change a few things. And more or less, that's what the offensive structure is all about. So for the Fabian Delph role, join the attack and invert into the midfield. Obviously looking to try and sit next to Fernandinho with the ball to play, helping control the phases of play. And then finally, the defensive positioning for the fullback on the left-hand side is set to stick to position. Onto the right-hand side now, of course, we've got the likes of Kyle Walker. He's set to join the attack and, of course, overlap, often providing quite a bit of width and an extra assistance or an extra man in those wider areas for the likes of Sterling to try and combine with, whether it was creating that overlapping run or maybe even a dummy run and allowing Sterling to just have a bit more space and time on the ball. Of course, just like with the left-hand side, the right-hand side will also be set to stick to position. So, moving on to the Fernandinho role. Now, for his defensive behavior, it is set to balance, allowing him to, be a bit more zonal if he needs to be, or potentially have that man-marking style of play. I think a more balanced approach suits how Fernandinho actually played for Man City at that time, which was a very, effective, dominant ball-playing DM that had a lot of bites in the midfield. So in order to replicate his role, attacking support should be set to stay back while attacking, although I will say every now and then he would venture forward, create those overloads higher up the field, add that extra body, that extra man, that extra passing option higher up the field. The interceptions is set to aggressive. Now I will say this, a little disclaimer, having your DM, the more defensive midfielder, on aggressive interceptions can be a little bit risky because it can, draw him out of position and lead to quite a few holes exploited, in your back line and your defense in the midfield essentially. But because you also want to try and, create that aggressive mentality of which Fernandinho had, you need to have aggressive interceptions on. That's the most realistic aspect and set of instructions I can give you for the Fernandinho role. But moving on to the positioning freedom, however, the deep line playmaker is also essential, looking for him to drop a bit deeper, drop between the back line, collect the ball, and obviously looking to progress it forward. It's very much a staple in what Pep Guardiola expects and wants his DM to do, whether it's Rodri, whether it's Fernandinho, and again, a very effective job at doing so. Of course, the defensive positioning more naturally is set to take up the more central areas, so he will be told to cover the center. Okay, moving on to your 2 central midfielders now. At the time, it was either a David Silva or it could have been a Bernardo Silva every now and then, but it was mainly David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne. So, very similar roles, but David Silva would often drop a bit deeper, allowing to try and support the likes of Fernandinho at a deeper rate, or just being able to collect the ball at a deeper rate and looking also to progress it further forward. So for his role, the attacking support will be told to stay back while attacking, but I will say this, because you do have the players in the box being set to 8, he will also every now and then make that adventurous run into the more attacking area. And of course, with the support on crosses, it is set to balance, also allowing and permitting him to be able to break into the attacking third. The interceptions is set to normal, and then of course cover the center and free roam, allowing him to pop up in the little half spaces, drift out to those wider channels, get on the ball and trying to run and dictate the pace of play from the midfield, of course. Onto his running partner, Kevin De Bruyne, on the right-hand side. His attacking support is set to balance, also can drop a bit deeper every now and then, but it wasn't the main aim of the game for De Bruyne, more so used as an attacking midfielder higher up the field. So if you are in need of a bit more of a defensive protection and layer, he can look to drop a bit deeper, but at the same time, you can also allow him to hang slightly further forward. The support on crosses, just like with Silva, it is set to balanced, allowing him to break into the box. But with the interceptions, at the time, Kevin De Bruyne had loads of legs to run all over the place, and he was quite happy to have aggressive interceptions on, and obviously look to try and win the ball back nice and high up the field. Of course, I haven't gone with Silva to have this, because if you have De Bruyne, Rodri, and Bernardo Silva all on aggressive interceptions, it does tend to break the structure. So more naturally, more realistically, they would all be set to aggressive, obviously looking to win the ball back nice and high up the field, but it does break the structure of the midfield, so you don't want to have all three of them on aggressive. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, the defensive positioning is set to cover the center, and then finally, just like with Bernardo Silva, allowing him to drift all over the field in the little half spaces, looking to pull players out of position, linking up play very effectively with the wingers or the other midfielders, or even the striker in certain moments. Free roam is absolutely essential for both of these players to be very successful in terms of the offensive awareness and build-up play. Okay, so onto your two wingers. At the time, it was Sterling on the right-hand side and Leroy Sané on the left. Now, as you'll see here, I've gone with Doku and Foden, left-footed on the left-hand side and right-footed on the right, but Pep wanted a more natural winger. Obviously, with the inverted fullbacks and Kyle Walker not always getting forward, you would demand a bit more width down either channel from your wingers, and when the opportunity was there, whipping in crosses and cutbacks, and he wanted a more natural feel to that. So Sané on the left, crossing in with his left foot, and Sterling on the right doing the same. So again, they'll also have the most identical same roles: come back on defense, stay wide, and a balanced support, allowing them to use their pace every now and then, getting in behind, penetrating the back line, of course, but at the same time, they wouldn't always just, hang wide. They would sometimes come a bit shorter, get into the box as well, allowing for them to vacate the space, either for a Kyle Walker or a Fabian Delph to bomb into, or potentially a Bernardo Silva / a David Silva, as well as a Kevin De Bruyne to work into that wider right or left channel. As for the interceptions, it is set to aggressive, allowing for that very good aggressive press of the opposition's back line. And then finally, the support on crosses is also set to balance, allowing them to break into the box every now and then, or potentially hang on the edge of the area and look to supply the second and third chances into the box for the striker or the, attacking midfielders. As you'll see here for the likes of Foden / Sané, same role, same instructions, same everything. So moving on to the likes of Kun Aguero. So for his role, he wouldn't often drift, he would more naturally stay central, and more so, I've set him to stay central. The attacking runs, however, I've set it to mixed, because even though Aguero was like, 5'9" or so, very physical, very dominant, could, sometimes out-duel the opposition with his pure physicality, maybe not winning as many aerial balls, but nonetheless, having the speed and the pace to get in behind, as well as, again, using his physicality to the team's advantage, linking up very nicely with the runners in and around him, whether it was Sterling, Sané, De Bruyne, Silva. They would always surround him with adequate passing options, and more so, I think mixed can suit him, allowing him to sometimes also drop a bit deeper, get on the ball, maybe lay off a few passes here and there. So again, mixed is good. Anyways, onto the interceptions, I've set it to aggressive, allowing for that, again, that good aggressive counter press. And then finally, the defensive support is set to stay central. Wouldn't always, drop deep and help support the defense, unless very much so under the caution you're looking to try and see out a game, but more so he would be the counter-attacking option further up the field, waiting and probing for that opportunity to arrive, and then obviously looking to try and pounce on it. So, moving on to the more offensive structure, you could say. Now, when in possession of the ball and they had settled into a game, they would look to try and take up this more natural offensive style of play. and that would be a 3-2-4-1 system. Now again, like I said in the beginning, I was very shocked that this was the more natural structure that they would look to try and revert into, but it makes a whole lot of sense now that now that I'm thinking about it. Like the likes of Sterling and Sane out wide, having, you know, those inside runners of De Bruyne, Silva, having Fernandinho, you know, patrolling with the likes of Fabian Delph, putting the strings at a deeper rate. It made a whole lot of sense. And of course, having Kyle Walker in the back line for the recovery pace. I mean, I know that at the time Stones was not, or he does have some decent pace, but it was mainly Kyle Walker that Pep wanted and needed and required, especially with that nice high line that City would look to, you know, take up. So it makes a whole lot of sense when you actually deep it. Okay, so moving on to the formation. Now I've selected a 3-4-2-1, and I've just changed and altered the positions as you'll see them right here on the screen. So therefore, it would be 1 goalkeeper, 3 centre-backs, 2 DMs, 2 attacking midfielders, 2 wingers, and then of course 1 striker. Okay, so moving on to the instructions. There are quite a few similarities. Of course, wing play, pressing after possession loss, and of course the team width still being set to 70. But the team depth, however, does change. A lot higher, set to 90. So you can definitely be exploited. So be more aware when you do use these instructions and these tactics. So it is implemented to try and, you know, pile on the pressure, have that chance after chance creation, having the opposition under pressure in their own half, pinning them back. But if there are a few good passes that have been strung together, you can be exploited with that very high line. So be aware of that. But anyways, onto the offense. It's still going to be set to slow build-up and possession, with the width also slightly wider now, set to 90. Again, you are looking to try and pull a lot more players into those wider channels, looking to try and pull the opposition's backline. You are trying to fit more players in between the lines as well. So that's more or less the reasoning behind the very wide width for the offensive end of things. The players in the box is set to 9 as well, looking to try and overload in that attacking area, whether it's cutbacks, crosses, you name it. You need more bodies in and around there for the goal scoring opportunities. As for the corners and the free kicks, that does not change. It is still set to 4. Okay, so taking a look at the instructions, starting off with Edison, he's still set to come for crosses and be a sweeper keeper, with Stones and Akanji, or Stones and Otamendi, Stones and company. They are both set to their base instructions. No real changes there. But for the likes of Kyle Walker, as that, you know, inverted fullback / third centre back, you still want him every now and then to try and help supply width down the right channel. So therefore, I've selected him to overlap. But at the same time, he also offers a good element of recovery pace in your back line. So if you are exploited and there is that ball fired in over the top, you do have likes of Kyle Walker as well as Stones with the recovery pace to maybe try and get back into position and maybe prevent the counter-attacking opportunity. Into the midfield now, we'll have a look at Rodri and Gomez, or Fernandinho and Fabian Delph. Very similar roles with a few tweaks and variations to it. Of course, Fernandinho more naturally the DM of the two, even though they're both DMs. But he is set to cut past lanes, a bit more of a zonal approach, looking to try and patrol in front of that back three as much as possible, with the likes of Delph helping him out quite a bit. But the attacking support is set to drop between the defenders, especially with the goalkeeper restarts. You still would want and require your DM to drop between the defenders, collect the ball, and obviously look to progress it forward. The interceptions is set to normal. Now I've done this. Obviously he does have a lot of bite in the midfield, but the risk is too great. If you are exposed, you're absolutely exploited tenfold. So I've changed it to normal, but again, more realistic, more, you know, replication of the mentality. It would be aggressive, but again, I'm not taking those chances, so I've set it to normal. And then, of course, being the deep line playmaker and cover the center. As for the likes of Delph, he's set to cut past lanes, stay back while attacking, and of course, normal interceptions as well. Not looking to venture too far forward, looking also to just stay in front of the back four / back three at times, and then just patrol on a more horizontal plane, which is exactly what I think these instructions tend to do very well. As for the positioning freedom, it is set to stick to position. You don't really want him being the deep line playmaker or drifting wide and opening and exploiting the space as that shield. And then finally, the defensive positioning is set to cover the wing. Now this will help him more or less naturally drift into that more natural left back role that he was in at the time, and more so, I think it also allows you to cover the left hand side a bit better. So into your two attacking midfielders now, of course, Silva and De Bruyne, of course, Bernardo Silva, or the potential of David Silva, or maybe even an Ilkay Gundogan. But Of course, with Silver, you still want him dropping a bit deeper, helping support the builder play, getting on the ball at a deeper rate, and also looking to progress forward. And at the same time, with this role set in play, it did allow him to drop off of the backline. Maybe if he had an attached marker to him, it would pull a player out of position, allowing for Sane or, Aguero or whoever was higher up the field to maybe exploit the space. So again, it can be a very effective role. The support on crosses is set to balance, allowing him to break into the box or maybe even hang on the edge of the area, rotate play, and wait for the better opportunity to arrive. And then finally, free roam is absolutely essential for both De Bruyne and Silva. Popping up in the little half spaces, running into the space in between the lines, looking to control and get on the ball as much as possible. Obviously, with the interceptions, it is set to aggressive, and you need both of them being very assertive and aggressive when the ball is out of possession, so that you can either foul the player or win it back and obviously look to progress it further forward. As you'll see for De Bruyne, he's got the same role and instructions, except for the fact that the defensive support is set to basic. You don't want to require him too much to drop deep. More or less, he can also look to and choose to stay further forward and link up very nicely with the forwards in and around him. As for the likes of Doku and Foden or Sterling and Sane, again, they have the same roles as before. Come back on defense, stay wide, balanced, aggressive, and then of course get into the box, or a balanced approach for the support on crosses. Sorry, not get into the box. As you'll see for the likes of Foden or the Sane role, very much the same. No major changes with that. And then finally onto Aguero. Stay central, mix attack, aggressive interceptions, and then of course stay forward. So again, his role didn't really change whether they shifted or altered formations or structures throughout the course of the game. So anyway, my dudes, that is how I would replicate and recreate the Centurion Manchester City side under the likes of Pep Guardiola. If you guys have enjoyed this video, as always, please don't forget to leave a like rating. That would be great. Rate the system out of 10. That would be even better. Whilst you there, also leave another comment. That would be fantastic as well. And of course, until the next time, my dudes, I forgot to do the rating. God damn it. Out of 10, I would give the system a solid 9. I think it's really good. It's kind of got some old school throwback vibes to it, with the more natural wingers crossing it in. The bombing on fullback every now and then as well, if you have the Mendy role on the left-hand side, as well as Kyle Walker bombing on further forward. But in terms of the offensive structure, it does allow you to very much dominate the pace of play, dominate the opposition. It more or less allows you to maintain the ball quite a bit, because you have quite a few bodies further forward, quite a few passing options. So even if you are, being pressured and hounded by the opposition, there's always that extra man in and around your player on the ball that he can look to try and lay the ball off to. Those little passing triangles are very effective at times. Anyways, so that is my rating. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Until the next time though, till the next Throwback Thursday, or maybe even until tomorrow, I hope you have a damn great day. I'm out.